Hello and welcome to Zapped to the Past. My name is Adrian Mills and I am joined as ever by Graham Raddings. If you don't know and you have not listened before, this is the podcast where we talk about games that were released for the Commodore 64, whilst also taking a brief look at what was going on in UK music, film and TV back in the 1980s. We are using the magazine Zapped 64 as a monthly guide for the games to focus on, but we are in no way affiliated with Zapped 64 itself. In this episode, we're going to be looking at the games reviewed in issue 7 of Zapped 64, which was the dull, cold and wet month of November 1985. Graham, tell us what we can expect in this first part.
Wow, this episode is crammed like an 80s party buffet table. From little computer people cheddar cubes and Wizardry pickle sticks to Paradroid party sausages and Winter Games pork pie quarters, it has everything. Sadly, this also includes a Saucer Attack Hunter Patrol prawn medley and dealing with some rats. Even Jimmy Talbot makes an appearance. Again? Pass me my shotgun, AD.
Well, that sounds great. So, a little bit different this month, actually, because we are going to talk about a game, but this is not our first big deep dive into a game, because that's going to come in a moment. We're just going to have a quick little brief sojourn into the life of little computer people, or the Activision Little Computer People Discovery Kit, as it was catchily titled. So this was reviewed in this issue, and it got a gold medal. So it would behoove us not to mention it. I think we should mention it. I think we should talk about it as much as we can. We're not going to go too much into it because it's an oddball curio from that really, really good programmer, David Crane. And so the premise of this is that every Commodore 64 has a little person living inside it. And they will come out and say hello and talk to you if you give them a house to live in. And this little character wanders about his house with his little dog, taps on the screen and plays his piano and listens to music and has a dance and eats his food and feeds the dog and makes phone calls and plays on his computer. Yeah, it's one of those things, isn't it? It's just, it's a strange old little thing. But it is quite engrossing. I sat there for quite a while just watching him do his stuff, watching him have a little boogie and a bop. I made him give some dog food and his dog was quite happy. I never played it back in the day because I never had a disc drive, and it was rubbish on tape. So that was one of those things I couldn't do. I think it's worth mentioning because one could argue, I think quite strongly, that this is an antecedent to games like The Sims, Seaman on the Dreamcast, Animal Crossing, even the Tamagotchis,
definitely,
and those kind of things. It's one of those early examples of watching a life within your computer.
Yeah. Isn't it weird? Isn't it, looking back now, as you can't, because loads of these things have happened, like you say, The Sims, Tamagotchi, loads of stuff that has you looking after little tiny avatar type creature things, whatever you want to call them. Isn't it a bit weird though when you look back at this one? Just the idea of it is odd. If you look at all the games and things that are occurring around this, just look at this issue of Zap, for goodness sake, and it sticks out like it defies reality that someone would, I think it's daring, but someone would release it, and just the whole idea of it is really unusual. So
could you imagine Activision today releasing something like this? Call of Duty little computer people. I
think it's really clever, but I just can't for the life of me figure out what goes on in David Crane's head. It's just, and also if you think about it, it's also a little bit depressing to think that there's that little guy in there, no friends to speak of, you really communicate. But it's like Lockdown Simulator. We're all in lockdown now, and this game is 35 years ahead of its time. It's just living the life that we're all living right now. So it's unusually prescient to be looking at a game where you've got a guy trapped in his house who can only communicate via different devices. He goes out for shopping and comes back, and that's his life. That's it.
That is true. Although, to be fair, sort of thing, when I sit down in my little chair, a little hand don't come out and pat me on the head.
No, that's a bit creepy. And what would be cool if he got COVID? I'm not saying that'd be cool to get COVID. That'd be awful. But because he does get ill, right?
He can turn green and get ill. Yes,
that's what I mean. But he obviously doesn't. I don't remember the little computer person actually getting old or dying or anything creepy like that. Or does
the
he?
Review, I think in the Zap review, theirs died.
So he can die. That's kind of
how
bleak is that? Does that mean that there's people out there in the world with Commodore 64s burning away at their chips, switched on permanently because they can't can't let their little computer person pass away.
Maybe.
Periodically patting him on the head and, getting him to... Because he does stuff by typing in, doesn't he? Because you type in commands and he goes and does stuff like feed the dog and do all those things. But was you aware of how many commands are there actually to do? I mean...
There's quite a lot. I did a bit of digging around on the internet, and there's a whole wiki page for it, as you'd probably guess. But there's quite a lot you can do with him. And, you can play games, get him to dance... all kinds of stuff. You can send him presents. You can, all kinds of stuff. You can send him a book.
Can he develop a severe sense of global paranoia?
Yeah, probably.
Well, then I tell you what, that is the game that's very prescient for the now, isn't it? So
yeah, absolutely. There is the tinfoil hat version. Yes.
Wouldn't it be weird if now you've played that game and you've switched it off, and obviously we've moved on to doing this podcast, all of a sudden tweets from your little computer person started appearing saying, "Ada, you've abandoned me."
I wouldn't like that.
Switch me back on.
No. But also, the interesting thing is that one of the clever things that this game did, sort of thing, was that it randomized your little computer people, I think, based on the serial number of your machine.
Okay.
So everyone's was different. Yeah, which is what Rust did with its wang length, shall we say, later on. Don't know if you know that sort of thing.
What?
The game Rust, which, is a big survival game on Steam. People play men in it, sort of thing, and the length of their wang, shall we say, was calculated on your Steam ID. And obviously this led to people being very irate, sort of thing, if the calculation ended in a small wang.
Do you know, it's amazing how conversations change, isn't it? You go from this charming little computer game about 30-year-old computer game about tiny little people to
steamy wangs.
The randomization of penis length based on a serial number and an account number. I tell you what, it's a good job banks don't do that, isn't it? As well, if they actually send it the other way around, you go into any kind of bank and they're like, you can't have an account here. This is the Girth Bank. You need to be next door at the other branch. Anyway, where are we going with that? That's just crazy. See, that's little computer people, though. It leads you down that world of who knows what. That's why it's clever.
Yeah, it's an unusual one, sort of thing. And like I said, it's similar to Animal Crossing in the way that, if you leave your village, you don't go back to it for quite a while. It'll be full of weeds and full of cockroaches in your house and everything. So there is that time-based thing. And yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Interesting. I think. For its time, I think quite, as I said, it's a precursor of lots of things to come that would be much, much bigger.
Well, I'm glad they don't come back to life or anything, because I imagine if that was the case, I must have switched it on and loaded it quite a number of times many, many years ago, which means that there's all these little computer people with beards and aging just sat around waiting for somebody to, it creeps me out even the thought of it. It's terrifying.
Anyway. Just looking over to the corner of the house, sort of thing, where there's just a dog skeleton because they ran out of dog food.
That's so bleak. That's little computer people, like the bleak, abridged version, right? The Threads version of little computer people, where there's just an explosion in the window, and that's it. He just slowly gets radiation sickness.
It would be funny, sort of thing, if it did link in with other games you'd played at the time. So he just looked out of his window and saw a mushroom cloud if you'd been playing loads of Theatre Europe.
The dog's fur is falling off, and it's just like attacking people at random.
Just goes and lives under the stairs, like in When the Wind Blows.
Yeah, absolutely. He just tries to escape in a glider, but obviously it doesn't work because he's used glider pilot for the training, and it never wouldn't have helped him in the slightest because it's nothing like being in a glider.
Okay, so that's that. Let's move into the games proper. And our first game is a big one, not to go back to Rust. And it's, I think we might actually struggle to say new things about this, but let's try anyway. We're going to talk about Paradroid. Oh, well, I'm not, because I'm going to hand over to Graham. Graham, tell us about Paradroid.
So, Paradroid is a Andrew Braybrook Houston game. It was the one that we previously spoke about when we did the feature on Andrew Braybrook when he was doing his developer diaries. And I think by this point they must have concluded, have they? Or they can't be carrying on. I don't know. They probably think they finished. Anyway, the game is you are a influencing robot, and you are on a series of, I guess are they space hulks, but essentially spaceships that operate on different floors, and the whole of the ships are
dreadnoughts. Dreadnoughts.
And all these dreadnoughts are populated by different types of robot, which are varying power. Their power is designated by their numeric designation on the top of their robotic skin. So you are a 001, so it means you aren't very powerful in of yourself, but you can clamber on top of these other robots, do a little takeover operation, which is a kind of a clever little little in-game, which we'll talk about in a little while. And then after you've done that, you then take over that particular robot, and then you can gradually, the idea of the game is to clear the dreadnought. Each floor of your dreadnought has got different robots on it. The idea is to clear that floor, then go up in the lift, clear the next floor, and eventually clear the entire dreadnought, and then move on. So you've got these, I think there's 10 overall, there could be more, but you've got quite a lot of work to do. The robots vary from 001, you, all the way up to 999, which is the most powerful one, and you can work your way through the levels, climbing your way up the various ranks of robot by taking them over. Now, if you happen to fail at taking them over, you go back to being 001, and if you fail at taking them over as 001, it's the end of the game. Some of the robots will drain you of your power. So while you've taken over a robot, you've got a certain amount of power. If you're drained of that, you'll go back to 001 again, which is fine if you're on some of the lower, more easy levels. But if you're in some of the crazy hard levels and you are surrounded by level 800 droids, you ain't going to last long because they're going to blow you out the sky or blow you out the spaceship. So it's a game of wits. It's a game of challenge. There's loads of little intricacies in there. It's great graphics, really speedy controls. It's compulsive. It's a difficult game, but not too difficult. There's a good way of challenge. It's kind of a creep around the floors and navigate your way. Think about what you're going to do, which targets you're going to go for. There's a lot of gameplay in there. I think it still stands up to this day as a brilliant playable game. I had great fun replaying it. I've never really not been a fan of Paradroid. There's nothing I don't like about it in terms of its graphics, its controls, its sounds. Everything is Andrew Braybrook polished here to a fine sheen. So you'd be hard pushed to find anything really wrong with it. And I believe it remains as good as it has always been. It's a great game then, it's a great game now, and it still stands up to being one of the most playable and fun Commodore 64 games of all time. That's my feeling. What about you, Mr. Mills?
No, I thought it was pond scum.
Crap!
No, it's what do you add? It is a fantastic game. It still stands up to this day. It is deceptively simple in premise, design, and its visual design, which belies the level of thought that has clearly gone into every aspect of it. From a, if you just look at the main screen sort of thing, you may think, oh, that doesn't look that great sort of thing. It's quite weird sort of thing. But it does a very, very clever thing in that it plays, again, this is a game that plays to the 64 strengths. If it had a load of robots trying to stomp around, it would look rubbish. So it doesn't do that. It just has the representation of them. And it does loads and loads of clever things with that representation. Your health, the way it represents your health is the speed of the spin on your sort of representation of you. Because basically all you see is a load of numbers. A 001 moving around, and it's got like a little sort of crescent on the top and a crescent at the bottom. And it's sort of spinning. That crescent is like a little animated spin across that. The speed of that is your health. It's a brilliant little touch. Immediately telling you, you don't need GUI or clever stuff like, or something in the corner. You instantly know how well you're doing by the speed of the spin and your health level. When it gets to a certain point, it'll start flashing grey and you'll get a warning sound sort of thing. There are more excellent little touches sort of thing, because let's not forget as well, from a control system, from a control perspective, everything in this is one joystick, one button, which is astonishing. The way this all works sort of thing. So you've got two main modes. There's obviously move and shoot, and then there's the initiating the transfer mode. You can shoot in 8 directions while facing any other way. You just tap the joystick in a way and fire sort of thing. So you've got 8-way shooting. You can initiate a transfer by stopping moving sort of thing and holding down the fire button and keeping it held down, puts you into transfer mode, which, as Graham alluded to, takes you to this mini game where you can try and take over the droid. The mini game in itself is is fun and incredible. It's tense, it's fast, it's strategic. It's if you're really good at it, you can jump from a 001 quite high quite quickly if you're good at it. But there is that risk of you getting a crap draw of the mini game sort of thing, and this is game over. And it's quite easy sort of thing on those bigger levels to be plowing around trying to do a transfer, get knocked down to a 001 and game over. This game is brutal sometimes, and your games can end like that, which could be really frustrating, but the game's just so much fun to play that it's not. You just crack straight back in. To my knowledge, there are 8 dreadnoughts to complete. 8,
yeah. I think it was somewhere in the upper regions.
Yeah, so there are 8, which is back in pre-saves, shall we say, a hell of a tall order, because each ship, and this is the other thing sort of thing, each ship is represented by, I don't know how many floors there are, there's about 15, 16, 17, something like that off the top of my head, something like that. Each floor is different colour-coded, colour represented, and there are different types of droids as well, ranging from messenger droids, which are your 100s, to service droids, to repair droids, all the way up through to the battle droids, and all these kind of things that go up. As you are equipped with a basic laser, but if you take over a droid with a better laser, you get to shoot that. There are the 711s and the disruptor droids.
That's right, I forgot about those.
You can go around just going buying, and just anything on the screen gets hit by your disruptor, except other droids that are disruptor droid. They're not affected by it. The little attacks, it's like that. It's a genius game. You can pull up terminals dotted around each floor. You can go to them and you can pull up a side-on map of the ship and a top-down view of the layer you're on. And you can put, in your head, you can put that side-on view with the top-down view together and see how that ship is built in 3D. It's a very, very clever system that Braybrook has devised here. And also as well, you can look at any droids below your ranking, go through, and so there's a little graphic representation of the droids, which is, they look good thing, but I think is probably the weakest aspect visually, because they don't, the C64 visuals thing in 1985, they're droids and they look okay and they're kind of a bit kooky and weird in places, but it is what it is. There's just so much in this game, and it's so much, and as you alluded to, it's fun, it's hard, it's challenging, but again, it can feel very punishing. But there are choices you made. You can run away. It's hard to say. There's little great touches, like when you clear a floor of droids, the lights go out. Yeah. Not fully sort of thing, but it just goes down to this. You get this nice sound effect, boom, and it all goes grey, a dark, power down, dark grey. So that floor's clear. Cool, we're out of that. Which is great thing until you get busted, and you've got no more lower floors to go to get something low powered to try and get back up again, and then the panic sets in. It's great. It's a fantastic game all round. There was some flaw at the time because of, he was doing the diary for Zapped, and then it came out and got the gold medal accusations of, is it that good? Well, yes, it is. And it stood the test of time. And that's the true sign that they were spot on with this review. It's absolutely 100% spot on. Deserves every plaudit it's got. And the only thing I would love to see, if I'm perfectly honest, and it's always been in my head, is a really dark 3D reboot thing because the mechanics are so good.
It surprises me that there hasn't been one. I mean, I know that there was other variants of this game on the other some of the other platforms. I think there was an Amiga version, and I'm pretty sure there's been other versions.
Was it Quasitron on the Spectrum? Was that a sort of 3D isometric version of this?
Could be. You'd have to.
Done by Steve Turner at Hewson.
Possibly.
It was very similar.
Yeah, it could easily be. It's not a game. I'm not familiar with a lot of Spectrum titles, but that's something that we could certainly look at and see. It was not without its influence in many ways, really, this game. I think what it did is present the polish, the new layer of polish, a bit like we talked about with the Exploding Fist. It represented a polish and a sheen that games, if you're going to release games now, there's a benchmark standard appearing, where these games are going to be really good. They've got really great graphics, they've been really well designed, really well thought out, and they've got great accommodating gameplay, multiple options, and all that kind of stuff. And so these new benchmark games are appearing, and they start to appear more and more. We've had it with Summer Games 2, and we've had it with Exploding Fist, we've got it with this one. There's a number of titles that we've spoken about where there's an escalation of that game quality, and this is by no exception, certainly streets ahead of a lot of the other games around at that time. And I think because it had a really great central core game idea, which, let's face it, when you've got that, you can put the wrappings on all of that, but at its core, this game is such a great idea, and it's such fun to play that, even when I was replaying it for this podcast, and I have to say, I had a lot of fun doing that. I was on it for way longer than I thought I would have been. Even back revisiting it, I was straight back into it. It didn't take me any time to get back into the space. It's such an easy game to pick up, and the only thing I did forget about was when I took over some of the more powerful droids. Of course, you can only hold them for a certain amount of time. You can't just sit you can't sit in a level 800 droid forever. You can only be in there for a certain amount of time. I completely forgot about that, which led to a very unfortunate death. But I took the risk. It was my risk to take. I took it. I forgot about that. Next time I play it, I'd be very wary of making sure that I jumped into a lower robot just to make sure I can, jump around a bit. But what a game. What a great game.
And let's not forget, just to wrap up, because one person did everything. All the code, all the visuals, all the sounds. And I really like the sounds, because he's got, that's the thing that, this is not your Hubbard soundtrack. It's not your Galway soundtrack. This is bleeps and bloops.
Yep.
And as he says, I think he said in one of the diary entries in Zap, he said he came up with it sort of thing because he wanted it to make it sound like robots talking to each other.
Yeah.
Which is perfect. It's that, and I think that's the thing that really works for this game, is that everything is in service to that core idea. There's not one part of it that you go, oh, that don't work, or that's a bit added on sort of thing. Everything is there. The terminal, so you can see everything out. You can see the map, where to go and, repower up. The only thing is, I don't think it needed a score. I think that's the only weird thing. I think it would have been better because it's not an arcade game. It doesn't need a score. It's just one of those little things. I think playing it now, and the score is kind of, and you lose score when you go and repower, where you go repower, which is fair enough. But that just felt, I don't know. It felt like games need to have a score, and that was kind of a bit of a prevalent thing back then. This kind of still sort of, its arcadiness was still a little bit there. And I think you could just check that out, and I think this game would be
something to have in the pages of Zap, though, wasn't it? Because they had that score section in there, didn't they?
They had. and I think that's what it was. But to me, this is a flawless piece of C64 software. It is it's one of the crown jewels for me. It's
what
one
a
of them.
bargain! What a bargain it is for the price as well.
$7.95.
It's just a bargain.
Yeah, there we go. Paradroid. We love it.
Yeah,
we still love it. We loved it then. We love it now.
Absolutely.
Well done, Andrew. Well done.
Good game. Well done, Andrew. Well done.
I don't think we can be too much more effusive.
No. Go play it. That's all I'd say is get yourself an emulator or a C64 or whichever you choose to do it on, however you choose to do it. Get a copy of that game by hook or crook and play it, because if you don't trust my word or Adie's word for it, just trust yourself, and when you play it, you'll love it because it is great.
Which might not be the case with our next game. So from Paradroid, we move to Isometric Fantasy.
It sounds like an album by Genesis.
I was going to say, yeah, this is an album. It's Peter Gabriel, I would imagine. Yeah, the Peter Gabriel Genesis. Yeah. Welcome to our new album. This is the first track of it. It's called Isometric Fantasy.
No, that Phil.
I see you from a corner of a room looking down. How many angles do I live? Anyway, we're talking about Wizardry, not Genesis. Wizardry is our next game. So what can we say about Wizardry? Let's have a look. When Wizardry first boots up, it's got some quite nice music, you think. This is all right. Moving along at pretty beat. There's a nice bit of tune there, sort of thing. It leads you to expect good things. So Wizardry is it's an isometric fantasy game which sees you wandering brown corridors, fighting floating skulls and minotaurs, and trying to solve puzzles, finding things in chests, and making your way through an isometric fantasy world. So far, it could be all right, sort of thing, but there are some issues with this game, most of which come down to the combat, which is dog awful. You can cast spells, but spells are finite, so if you cast a fireball spell, that's it's gone. You only have a finite resource for them, sort of thing. But what you do have is a sword, and you would think, great, a sword, so when anything comes at you, you can have a blast with your sword, except the way that the sword works is you have to hold down the fire button and then waggle madly left to right and hope that you put more hits on the opponent than they hit on you, and it doesn't always work, and it's rubbish. I didn't like it because there's no skill. It just takes it all away from you. And it's really, really finicky in its movement. As I said, it's isometric, so you've got, you move up to move sort of top right, or move up to move sort of top left. I can't remember which, up and left or up and right. And right,
yeah.
It's broke my head slightly because it wasn't quite the way I was thinking it should be. I mean, visually, it's kind of all right, apart from the huge seismic glitch at the bottom of the screen, which is, not something you'd expect to see at this stage in the C64's life. That's really not a nice thing to sort of. It just, it drags you out of the scene, sort of thing, which is a bit of a shame. Because, the visuals are all right, although you don't look much like a knight and more like a spaceman. And the colour scheme is a bit weird. And the minotaurs are kind of. Are they mere minotaurs? Because they kind of have floaty fish bottom halves. I don't know what they were.
I don't even want to know what the cross between a minotaur and a fish would be. Brilliant.
I don't know. And then there was the floating skulls, there was the spiders. And if you get the manual of this game, it actually talks you through the opening sequences. So I did that. I found the knock spell, went back and cast the knock spell on the big head, and nothing happened. So I was like, I don't know what's going on here. It's way too obtuse. It's too finicky. I don't like the music grates very quickly. And I didn't like the different types of music for different creatures. It was kind of got annoying quickly. And I remember wanting to like this back at the time because, as I've said before, I like my fantasy stuff. I like my Lord of the Rings. This seemed like it could be quite down that alley sort of thing, but there's too much in the way of you enjoying it to enjoy it. I don't know how else to say it, really. What did you think? Did you get on with it?
Well, it's one of those games where, in your mind, Wizardry is a great game. If in your mind's eye, it's a great game. And I think it's because it's driven by that initial sense of the music that you'll have in the back of your mind, because that initial piece of music is famously catchy for the C64. It's for some reason that I've yet to really identify. It just seems to resonate with everybody. Everyone seems to have a liking for that kind of twee, dee. Everyone remembers it for some reason. So when the game actually starts and you press the space bar to start, the problems begin. So aside from its horrible controls, And bear in mind, this isn't just joystick control. This is joystick, keyboard, fire button. It's all over the place. You have to press a button to go through doors. You've got to press 1 and 2 in the keyboard to select your spells. It's not been created by someone that's ever used a joystick or played a game, I don't think. So it had this kind of it's kind of strange feeling because you really want it to be good. You really, for some reason, you really want Wizardry to be a lot better than it is. And when you actually get down to it, it's not.
I've actually written that. I've always wanted to like this, but never got there.
And I think it's because I've written that. It's because it feels impenetrable. So even getting through the initial door is a hassle, and there's nothing actually attacking you at that point. But when you get to the next screen, an impending danger comes, whether it's the spider or the skull or the minotaur or the floaty zappy lightning cloud thing or whatever. When you're wandering around all the various hallways, which all look kind of the same, even if they've changed the colour scheme, it's just the same old. You get tired of it very quickly because the puzzles in it are just about impenetrable. It's not immediately obvious what it is that you're actually meant to do, and it's not clear whether it's even worked if you've done it. So, So you have this system of spells that you can get hints from, which actually don't help you in the slightest, really. So much so are the puzzles impenetrable that in the instruction manual for this game, it actually tells you how to get past the first puzzle, in case you don't know. And I think that's actually quite a telling thing with this game, is that it's a puzzle game wrapped in this isometric packaging and all of those things, and it has the trappings of something that could have been really great, but just misses the mark on almost every level. Bad controls, glitchy screen, poor graphics. They're not really representative of the idea that you are an apprentice wizard called Drin, having to find the last elemental and cast a spell on them in order to become the ultimate wizard, and you have to escape from the Castle of Illusion, it's called. All of that is kind of lost because when it starts up and you get past that repetitive music, there's not much to it. And so, exactly as you described, it's just a long exercise of more disappointment after more disappointment. And no matter how twee and earwormy you make the music, it is never going to be able to make up for the fact that this game is boring and hard to control, and the puzzles are annoying. And if I ever spend any more time in my life trapped in that stupid room in Wizardry where you can't get out, I swear I've switched off Wizardry more times than any other game because of that room. And I found myself in there again. I don't even know how I got in there. So I was trapped, and it kept saying, look to the map, and there was no help in the guide. All I had was fireballs, and there didn't seem to be any way out of that room. In the end, I thought, you know what? There's a reason why I didn't like you in the first place, and this is it, because you are all mouth and no action. This game, it's all in the packaging. Even the instructions for this game were written in kind of a cocky, kind of clever. Our game's great. We've hired musicians to really make this game feel great, but then in the first instance, they have to explain how to get past the first monster in case you don't know how to. Which, by the way, you won't know how to. So it's no guessing game there. You won't know how to do it. You'll need those instructions. So for me, Wizardry is, as it was in the beginning and has always been, a dull snooze with a reasonably good, catchy soundtrack that after a while will make you want to pull your ears off.
There's a good game here. If you the one thing I because this reminded me in a little bit in a sense of Entombed, because it's you're wandering around in a
very similar.
You're wandering around corridors and stuff like that. But whereas the thing I got annoyed with was Entombed was the constantly respawning enemies. The thing I liked about this is okay, you have fixed encounters. That's okay. But Entombed had, you had the whip, and it was a bit faster and a bit chunkier and everything like that. You marry these two sort of ideas together, and you've actually got probably a decent game, because Entombed is, decent puzzles, decent visuals, looks nice sort of thing. And you take Wizardry's maybe spell system and, sense of loneliness, which is there, although you check out that music sort of thing to sort of create a bit more atmosphere, because the music's too twee. I want to feel a bit of dread.
It's almost saying the words "Hey nonny nonny" in that music, isn't it?
Compare this with the soundtrack to, because like you said, a lot of people like it, but compare this to the soundtrack to something like Master of Magic. Similar type of thing. Master of Magic's soundtrack creates a great atmosphere. This creates none of that. No. And so two graphical adventures like Entombed and Wizardry sort of thing, for me, both have issues in different areas. And if you take the good parts out of them, maybe you'd have a really cracking game. It's just that, unfortunately, they're in two games and there's too many annoying parts.
Absolutely.
Really
and the main sprite,
either of them.
And the main sprite is a mixture of a welder mixed with a Lego man, isn't it? Really, because it's hard to describe. What it isn't is a wizard's apprentice.
No, because in this sort of thing, there was the guy mixing spells, wasn't there, on the table? And he looked like a wizard. He had robes and a pointy hat, and he looked like a wizard. Yeah, this guy looks, as you rightly say, looks like a welder.
Well,
looks like
maybe that was its original name, the Welder's Adventure.
It should be in Flashdance.
Hey, maybe.
Yeah, she was a welder, wasn't she?
I'd like to see Flashdance with the Wizardry music now for some reason. I think that'd just be quite interesting
While
to
she's
watch.
doing that dance?
Yeah, while she does the famous Flashdance, just play the do 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 do. And just, in fact, that might have to be a mashup that I actually create because I have a penchant for those sort of things. Anyway, I digress. Not so Wizardry, really. Lack of Wizardry. There's no Wizardry in it. Where's the Wizardry? What use is a fireball spell if it doesn't kill your enemy?
No, absolutely. The thing with Wizardry that, it had been quite bigged up in the previous 2 issues of the magazine. We'd had a preview, we'd had a cover. There was a lot of big things expected of this, and no, doesn't deliver. Does not.
No, it's a great shame.
So let's move on. To Sorcerer Attack. Well, Sorcerer Attack. Now, I've got the surprise here is that I mentioned this to Graham before we started recording, is that I actually had 2 versions of this, which was the 1984 version and the 1985 version. And I'm going to tell him now that I gave him the better version, which is the 1985 version. So considering you got the better version and I played both, what did you think to Sorcerer Attack, Graham?
So, this is just rubbish. It was utter crap. And a waste of. I feel like I am owed life now back from whoever created that. So the premise of the game, flying saucers. Nice, quite nicely animated and drawn flying saucers. That's my only positive comment here. Are hovering around the White House for some reason, like a pixel drawing of the White House. Quite again, not terrible, but at the White House, making woo noises like UFOs do. You've got to shoot them down. There you go. That's it. With the strangest in-game mechanics that I've ever known. Because sometimes when you press your fire button, it will freeze the target your target is on the screen, and it will freeze the UFO in mid-space for some reason, which enables you to shoot it quite easily. Really. Other times they don't do that, and I wasn't sure if it was the number of bullets you used meant that the UFOs escaped, or anyway, the scoring system was so random. In the end, I failed the game. I'm not sure how, because I shot every UFO out the sky. But the only decent thing in it is the basic animation of this. One of the flying saucer. There's only one type in the whole game, and the sound effect of you shooting is kind of a nice filtered kind of a shooshy sound. Everything else in this game is crap. How it got published, I do not know. It's just rubbish, and it's just a waste of time. And if people paid for that, I feel sorry for them. To this day, I feel sorry for them. There should be a clause somewhere where if you bought this game, you're still entitled to get your money back. Even now.
What's funny about that sort of thing is, like, you tried to make sense of the mechanics, and I kind of know what's going on with them. So yeah, in the 1980, I'll tell you what, in the 1984 version, the bullets are about, your bullets you fire are about 1/10 of the speed. Everything else is the same, but the bullets that you fire go.
Oh, why?
So I don't know. So that's why I used the 1985 version, because obviously that was probably the one that they reviewed. So it's not a case of it is crap. I'm not going to beat around the bush here, sort of thing. I completely 100% the thing. There are actually, although both sources look the same, they actually have 2 different behaviors. One constantly moves and one stops every now and again. So if you manage to shoot the one that moves, you get more points. If you shoot the one that stops, you get less points. Now the whole point is that it's, as the saucers are moving around, the saucer's score is going up, and it's the first to 50 wins. So if you shoot the saucers, their score comes down slightly, yours goes up, and you've got to shoot them. You've got to get to 50. As it gets closer to 50, they destroy various landmarks in the scene. The big needle place, the White House roof, and all that kind of stuff. So you're talking a quite a crap version of Independence Day, really.
You're not kidding.
So that's the whole point. Now, one of the main issues with this game, and apart from it being rubbish, this mechanic that as the sources exist, and they constantly exist, because even if you shoot them, another one spawns immediately, this score is constantly going up. Now, the sources have a tendency to fly off screen. And when they fly off screen, their score is still going up, but you can't get off screen to shoot them.
Yep.
That's bad. That's a bad mechanic. That's a bad idea. They should be always on screen so you at least can shoot them. I'm not going to spend too much time on this. It is a single screen. It is a single screen. 2 sources attack the White House. You try and shoot them to stop it. The bitmap graphics for the White House are quite nice. The sprites are quite nice. That's it. It is unapologetically terrible. It's a Broderbund game, isn't it? It's one of the first we look at this month.
There's loads of them in this issue.
I think
every other game was a Broderbund game.
I think Broderbund suddenly just launched onto the scene this month, sort of thing, because we have a series of Broderbund games. This is one of the first ones. This is by far one of the worst. Not that the others are particularly much good, apart from one of them.
It's awful. It angered me, this game. It angered me in a way that I don't often get angry at games. Because
I was very tempted to give you the 84 version.
Well, I just try and find, I think, you know what, this might have been some 14-year-old kid's first game attempt. It might have been that, you know, who knows what the real deal is behind this. Who knows whether Broadbun had some 14-year-old trapped in some kind of mine, and in order to get out, he had to make this game or a series of games. Who knows how they managed to get this game out from wherever it was written into the public world. We're not going to forgive them for that. It's just awful. It's just awful. You look at this issue of Zapped. Look at the games that are in it and look at that and go, no way. If I was the guy that developed that, I'd be saying to them, don't release that game. Please don't release it. Look, I'll make a better one. And I guess that's how the 1985 version came in. But it sounds like he hasn't really improved much from 1984.
No. So, to be fair, though, sort of thing, if you saw those screenshots, if you saw that White House at the time, you'd think, that actually looks all right.
Yeah, what a miss. Yeah.
This is like, a nice looking pie full of turd.
It is. It's just no.
It's crap. Let's move on.
Let's move on. Just do yourselves a favour. Never play it. Let's not even talk about it again. It doesn't exist anymore. Death to Sorcerer Attack.
So yes, enough. On to our last game in this section. We have got what am I on about? We have got from Mastertronic. This was more of a Master Chronic one though for me.
God.
I know, I've been waiting all the time to say that. A long time. 35 years in fact.
Master Chronic.
I give you a Master Chronic. Anyway, okay, so this is a Buck Rogers style into the screen, shootery World War II bombery type thing where you shoot stuff coming towards you, Buck Rogers game style, and it's not very good. I don't know what else to say. You pilot a bomber to blow stuff up. The 3D effect is not bad. However, the flickery, juddery enemy sprites and quite turgid controls hold back any kind of enjoyment, is what I put in my note. You would die immediately due to flak spawning right in front of you, and you would have no chance to avoid it, so you just die immediately. The collision box on your sprite is way too big. There's no kind of, you'd think, I'm clear of that, dead. Clearly I wasn't clear of that, but it's too punishing to be enjoyable because it's too slow to react. I know you're in a bomber, I get that, but if I'm in a bomber, then at least be a bit nicer with the collision box.
Yeah.
And don't punish me. To be fair, at this point, sort of thing, my last comment on this is, and I don't want to spend too much because it's not particularly great, is if you're going to do a wartime shooter, go play 1942 because it was in the arcades at this point.
Yeah.
And that's how you do a wartime shooter, not like this.
No.
To quote the Matrix, not like this. Not like this.
Random to bring the Matrix into a Hunter Patrol review, but I can dig it. We're all batteries, take the blue pill.
I watched the Matrix the other night sort of thing, and it's what's her face when she goes, not like this. And it just, and I imagine sort of thing, she was playing Hunter Patrol.
What a bleak version of the Matrix they're in. When the Matrix is Hunter Patrol, I thought it'd be more realistic than this. I thought the Matrix was supposed to be this powerful simulation. I feel like I'm stuck in Hunter Patrol.
My collision box is massive.
I've been transported to a 1985 Mastertronic game, for goodness sake. This is the worst version of the Matrix yet. Kill it, destroy it, Zion, get rid of it.
When we first created the Matrix, it was too perfect. Then we created a Hunter Patrol version, which was even worse.
I'm sensing an Ace Redux as well, where he plugs it back in and it's Hunter Patrol. Anyway, that's something else I might have to do. That's 3 different videos I've made now. Just to give my 2 pennies worth, because that's all it's going to get. Crap. Utter crap. Annoyed me that when I fired my bullets and moved to the right, they kind of shot off in some weird bendy perspective trick. The enemy craft, for whatever you could even describe them as, that were kind of buzzing around like flickery wasps. So it felt like it was like a wasp attack simulator, really. The scrolling vertical sort of colour bars flying effect, which seems to be in order to create flying effect, you must have nausea-inducing stripy raster type bars or something like that in any games at the moment. Annoyed me. Laggy, not much fun, really badly drawn sprites, and like you say, the arbitrarily just seem to kill you for never spawn near you and kill you instantly. Even the Rob Hubbard music in there isn't particularly inspired either. Not his greatest bit of music. So for me, Hunter Patrol is a big fat dog egg, and not a very good one at that, so it can get lost and go back to the version 1 Matrix that you came from.
even for £2, this is this would be subpar.
Well, we've said before, and I'll say it again. As much as Mastertronic did some great games for £2, they also did some real stinkers, and this is one of them.
Yeah,
this one stinks to hate. When you open the cassette for this, a dog shit fell out, and it landed, and you had to squeeze that into your tape deck and load it in and pretend you were happy with it. This is a birthday gift that you would have hated. So your brother bought you this for your sister bought you this for your birthday as a present because they didn't know a lot about games, and it was £2, and you loaded it up, and you had to either that or you had to pretend it was this is great. Yeah, it's really great as you reach for the off switch, going, I'm turning this off and keep it for best. I'm going to keep this one for best. Don't want to play that in the tape player too much; it could wear out. Crap! Utter crap! Get rid. No more. No more of these.
Let's move on. That's our first section of games. Clearly, the standout is Paradroid,
yes.
and the curio that is little computer people.
Yeah,
so
they make up for the fact that these other ones are utter rubbish.
Yeah, to be fair, sort of thing. I think about 90% of my gaming time of these 4 was Paradroid, and then I just turned the rest off.
I have to say, I felt that my Paradroid to other games ratio was a little bit off during that first phase. But
maybe I should have played these first before getting to Paradroid, because it's like eating the dessert first before you have a really rubbish dinner.
It is, yeah, but it would spoil it for you because you'd think, wow, Paradroid. Actually, it might be like relief, but you might have actually. I think in succession, if you play those too quickly, too much in too short space of time, it would put you off playing any games for at least a day, because your brain wouldn't be able to recover from the stroboscopic nightmare that is Hunter Patrol for long enough.
So yeah, not like this. Not like this. No, version 1 Matrix, get lost, reset button. So let's move on. Right, that's the games for part 1. Paradroid, yes. Wizardry, nah. Swords of Attack, no. Hunter Patrol, no. We'll come back in a moment where we will talk about the music in November 1985, so stay tuned for that. All right, welcome back. We are looking at the music in November 85. There is quite a lot here to sort of go through, so we'll see what we have to say about these things. We'll start off, as ever, with the number 1 singles. We spoke about this one muchly last episode, and that is The Power of Love from Jennifer Rush, which was everywhere. We also discussed this one a bit as well, because that was removed. The Good Heart came in at number 1. Good Heart by Fergal Sharkey. And then the pre-boy band powerhouse of Wham! Appeared.
Yeah, absolutely.
With I'm Your Man.
Yeah, good song, whichever way you look at it.
Yeah, it's okay, yeah.
Good pop song.
I've got, absolutely, good pop song. You can certainly swing from side to side and clap to it, which is my, it's my how I judge a good pop song. Can I sway from side to side and clap? And I'm Your Man. He actually does it during his playthrough, so he's like... See, you can swing from side to side and clap.
You can, and to be fair, he had a great voice. And as for the other guy, Andrew Ridgeley, don't know what he sounded like.
I don't know. No one does. No one wanted to. He played the guitar quietly.
Did he?
We don't know. All right, so what we got? Number 1 albums. Let's just go through those as well. Love Songs by George Benson is back in.
Good old George Benson. I've put a YouTube link in our notes for you to look at later, so
you can come from.
You can feel the smoothness of George Benson's delivery, because he's a proper smooth singer. Oh yeah.
I know nothing about George Benson. Is it Barry White-esque?
Yes, very much so.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. So I think so. It's oh yeah.
Yeah, very much so.
Sort of thing. Okay. Then we had Promise by Sade.
Very good. Yeah, good album that.
Yeah, I was never a Sade fan.
Yeah, I quite like Sade. Sophisto-pop. 80s Sophisto-pop, you gotta love it.
I was not sophisticated in any way, shape or form, so it was far too sophisticated for me.
I wouldn't profess to be sophisticated at the time. For me, it would have been, who is this Sade? What's this about, this Sade? But
what's she promising?
But nowadays, if you're wanting a bit of background music, Sade isn't a go-to person. Still recording to this day. Well, not continuously. Yeah, continuously. Yeah. She's never stopped.
She can't be stopped.
Yeah. How is she keeping that note?
Turn it off. Right, what have we got? The last album, which replaced Sade. We spoke about these a few episodes back, because this is the greatest hits of 1985. Various artists. So this is another hits album or whatever it is. So this is your compilation of, I couldn't be bothered to buy the singles, so I just get them all in one lump.
Yeah, exactly.
A knockoff now album.
That's it.
It's just loads of singles. I'm not going to look at what was on there.
You don't need to, because they're all the ones that we've talked about.
Exactly. So there you go. New singles. So we got some new singles here.
What a mix!
One of them will stand out from the rest. One of these is not like the others. I think it's right to say. So we built this city from Starship. That's not the one that's not like the others. Came in at number 80 on the 3rd of November.
I bet that got higher once it. That was.
I imagine that must have climbed, because that's a Stone Cold classic as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, well, nowadays I don't think it was. I don't think Starship were very appreciated at the time, because they were a mishmash of different people. Weren't they? It was Jefferson Starship, wasn't it? And then one of them left, I think. And
Jefferson Airplane, Jefferson Starship.
Yeah, so
and
they merged the two together in some kind of Starship.
It was just the two of them.
Yeah, and then it was the female singer from Jefferson Starship, I think. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
There's a good documentary about them, sort of thing, if you really want to sort of see the history of the Jefferson Starships and airplanes and whatever, which is quite interesting. But hey-ho. One Vision from Queen.
Okay, yeah.
Went in at number 9 on the 10th of November. I'm presuming if One Vision's out, and I think this is right sort of thing, we're in Highlander territory, are we not?
Is One Vision
from? Is it from Highlander?
I don't know. I thought that was It's a Kind of Magic, wasn't it? I don't know that One Vision is. It might be. I'm not sure. No, because I know that Who Wants to Live Forever and
I thought One
It's
Vision
a Kind of
was
Magic.
as well.
Could be, but I don't know.
I thought it was just relating to just one person, One Vision. Maybe I'm wrong. I thought this was Highlander-esque. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. There's a lot of Queen around that time, sort of thing, which I get confused as to what it is. But hey-ho. In at number 74 on the 10th of November, and I've seen you put a link here, so I might have to go have a look. Or yes. I put the link. I don't know. You put the link. We have the track Again by Jimmy Tarbuck.
The classic.
I have no idea what this is, but I put this in for your benefit. Knowing what a big Jimmy Tarbuck fan you are.
Oh, yeah. Been an avid follower of the Tarbuck.
For those who don't know, for our more international listeners, Jimmy Tarbuck was an 80s comedian, a Scouse 80s comedian, a Liverpudlian 80s comedian who was famous for having a gap in his teeth and presenting Winner Takes All.
Which was a game show, wasn't he? He was essentially a game show host, and he was an entertainer from the kind of the sort of
70s comedians
70s vaudeville
era,
type comedian, wasn't he? Yeah, the sort of on stage, along with a lot of other comedians of that time.
But I never knew he had a recording career.
Well, he's clearly a very talented guy, because he was all over the shop, wasn't he? He did all sorts of stuff. But I'd not heard of that, and thankfully I never will again, which is ironic, considering it's called Again.
A week after Starship debuted at number 80 on the 3rd of November, West End Girls from Pet Shop Boys, number 80.
Don't like him, never will.
You don't like Pet Shop Boys?
No.
Oh man,
I like the instrumentalists. I like the instrumentation. I like the keyboards, the synths. Can't stand the lead singing. Can't stand it at all. Rubbish. Never have liked it.
Fair enough. West End Girls is not my favourite. I'm a fairly decent Pet Shop Boys fan. I quite like them. West End Girls is one of the, I was a bit, that's Sophisto pop, I think, sort of thing. The same kind of shadow.
Totally.
And I just didn't quite get it at the time. And it wasn't until we got stuff like Suburbia and things like that, which, cracking tunes, and I started getting to them. So there we go.
Is it Neil Tennant, the nasally drone that sings on those?
Yeah. So there you go. We've already mentioned this. Wham actually went in straight to number 2 on the 17th of November.
They were big at the time. That's in the 80s. They were massive at this point.
Yep. If we're not in Highlander territory, we are definitely in Rocky IV territory.
Yep.
Because we've got Burning Heart in at number 96 from Survivor.
Oh, that's a great track, that is.
It is a very, very good song, Burning Heart, I have to say. I'm really, really looking forward to the point when we get to actually look at Rocky IV. A film that is more montage than film.
Yes.
It is like the apotheosis of MTV culture. That film.
That song is one of the montages. There's 4 or 5 in that movie at least.
It's just an amazing film, and so I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, Burning Heart Survivor, number 96, and on November 24th, in at number 26, a song I'd never heard of, which I sent you in. I think you were quite bemused by as well.
Absolutely, yeah. Totally.
Was the title song from the film Spies Like Us, recorded by Paul McCartney.
Just weird, because Spies Like Us was a Chevy Chase, Dan Aykroyd comedy vehicle. Yeah. It wasn't a very good one, though. It was a bit of a misfire, wasn't it? So
it's got a couple of decent moments in it, but yeah, it's certainly not their best thing.
No.
It's again sort of thing. It's making hey, nuclear war, isn't that funny?
Well, they paired them up a lot after Caddyshack, because Caddyshack was actually a surprise hit, because that had a lot of the Saturday Night Live characters in. So it had
Dan Aykroyd in that?
Yeah, Dan Aykroyd plays. He's in Caddyshack 2, but he's in.
Right.
But he's also in another couple of films, sort of wacky comedies around that time. And Chevy Chase was. They're all of the same Saturday Night Live ilk, weren't they? Yeah, sort of mean. So they were all kind of floating about doing these, and so it was. Let's pair up, this comedian with that comedian. It'll be hilarious. Bill Murray did loads of stuff like that, didn't he, with Stripes and stuff like that. And
yes,
there's quite a few of them came
Stripes
out.
Stripes is funny though.
It's funnier than this,
It's just, there's a couple of good moments in Spies Like Us, but it's not the best. And I certainly do not remember the Paul McCartney title track.
No, I was a surprise.
When I listened to it, I thought, you know what? Maybe I'll listen to it and it'll go, oh, yeah, it's that. No, it just went, it's that? What is this?
I remembered a Spies Like Us song. I just don't remember it sounding like that or being sung by Paul McCartney. So there you go.
No, dreadful. It was awful.
Oh, yep.
Albums. God, moving through these at a pace. I want to know what kind of a world we live in. Where a ZZ Top album can go straight in at number 2. What was going on in 1985?
To be fair, that album is actually quite good. ZZ Top are no frills, but they're actually good, quite a good band.
No frills metal.
Well, they're not metal,
the quick save of rock.
Yeah, they're not. This isn't going to challenge you in any way. They're not. But they do kind of
Little Rock.
They do a kind of a country western vibey kind of MOR rock, don't they? They're not challenging in any way, and it's kind of the same song in different formats, really. But they had a look and feel. The sounds sound like ZZ Top. They've got quite a nice sort of layered guitar sound. I quite like them.
I just didn't think that they were that big over here to go straight in at number 2.
Yeah, big. Well, they had a succession. I don't, because I've got a feeling sometimes with certain bands like this, when there's a suspicion that you think, how did they get to the top of the chart because they weren't popular? It makes you wonder if ZZ Top were in a big, well, not them personally, but one of their songs was perhaps off this album was in one of the big films out at that time, and so
was this the album with is it "Give Me All Your Lovin'" or your kisses? Is that ZZ Top?
That is ZZ Top. I don't know if that's off Afterburner. It could be. You'd have to look at that.
I have no knowledge of ZZ Top whatsoever.
There's another one called Eliminator, I think, and I think that might be on that. I think.
Yeah, but I was just quite shocked when I saw that this went in at number 2. It felt to me like this is it's another Matrix gone wrong.
Yes.
A week later, we spoke about this briefly because the big money came out. Rush went in at number 9 on the same day sort of thing. Rush went in at number 9. And this is the kind of world we live in, where Rush are 7 places below ZZ Top. With Power Windows, so they're synth heavy mid 80s sound of Rush. Whether you like them or don't, sort of thing. This was a really really good album. I would say that. Hey ho, whatever. But there's some cracking tunes on this. That went in at number 9, which again was higher than I was expecting.
When they reissue the versions of this album by Rush, is it Power Windows XP, Power Windows 2000, is it Power Windows ME? What do they call it?
There, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly. They could have been a Microsoft tie-in. It would have worked for them. Everyone wins.
Power Windows ME.
Never that one. The Windows ME was awful, but it could be. We could have Windows, XP, Windows 8, Power Windows 10, the latest version. Could have been brilliant. They're missing our trick there.
Vista.
Geddy, get onto the phone with Microsoft.
Yeah, I could do it. Yeah. Same day, Aha's Hunting High and Low came out.
Good album.
On 3rd November, and at number 24. That is a good album. Yeah, I recently bought the vinyl of that. Strange enough. Well, not recently. This was pre-lockdown. It seems recently because time has condensed to such an extent, sort of thing, that yesterday I was 4 years old. Well, yes. So it feels.
Time is now meaningless.
Yeah, yesterday Spies Like Us came out.
Oh, God, no.
It felt like that way, sort of thing, but when I actually think about it, it was about 2 years ago that I bought that. But anyway, Hunting High and Low, good album from Aha, good debut album, very good. Straight in at number 1 on the back of.
Told us she was popular.
Was Sade. We spoke about her, sort of thing. We just said it was a new release, but it's straight at number 1.
It's still going.
Straight in.
It's never left.
It's never ended.
Sade cannot be stopped.
No one wants to. Sade, stop singing.
Actually got a really great voice, Sade, as well. Really good.
I'm not, I don't
want to feel like we're mocking her unnecessarily.
No. It's not a type of music for me, and that's where I am with it, sort of thing. I know I can appreciate the fact that she's got a lovely voice.
We see where your allegiances lie. You dive from the Pet Shop Boys to Rush to some other crazy stuff in there, Suzanne Vega, and all the way up to Starship.
Absolutely.
Eclectic is the word.
Eclectic, yes. But I'll have none of Sade. No. None of it. You can stop singing. One for you. I think you like these, don't you? There was the Chronicle of Black Sword came in at number 65 on the 10th of November, which from Hawkwind.
I'm not a big Hawkwind follower, I have to say.
Am I getting these mixed up with Jethro Tull?
No, possibly. I don't like either. I'm not a fan of the kind of the sort of I draw the line at some of these big proggy bands. So I'll stick with my King Crimson if I'm going to listen to any of those stuff, because it's just that if you're going to go hog wild and listen to crazy lyrics of stuff, then just do them, and they do it better than anybody. And time signatures that no human can actually do on a drum kit. So
I want to know sort of thing with that title album sort of thing. The Chronicle of Black Sword it's missing a the. So who is Black Sword?
Yeah, it's a person, right?
Yeah, I guess so. And or because it's obviously not a the Black Sword.
Well, I'm thinking
it's Black Sword.
It's an 80s prog rock type band album cover, so I'm thinking Black Sword might be his wang. So the front cover of the album is just going to be a guy with an enormous wang, and it's the tales of him.
He's got his Hawkwind out.
It's Hawk Wang.
Hawk Wang. Behold the Chronicle of my Black Sword.
There you go. Wang. Check out Hawk Wang.
Yeah. A week later, Echo and the Bunnymen, straight at number 6 with Songs to Learn and Sing. I'd rather not.
I bet they're chirpy.
I'd rather not learn and sing Echo. I was never a big Bunnymen fan. Were you?
No, kind of. I think that a bit of that post-punky type stuff skipped me. I'm not sure where Echo and the Bunnymen live. Are they post-punk? Are they kind of pre-gothy? Are they in that cuspy area where it's sort of, I don't know. I didn't really dig them. The only reason they're on my radar at all is because of the
Lost Boys.
Lost Boys, yeah, in that version of People Are Strange which they did instead of the Doors, but they sang it exactly like the Doors sing it. So is that a cover or is that an imitation? I don't know. It doesn't really matter. It's the only time I've ever really come across them.
Of those kind of bands in that kind of period sort of thing, I probably, I always thought I should like Echo and the Bunnymen, but I don't. No. Anyway, there you go. And just to round this off, again, one of these is not like the other. This last title was I Love a Party, which came out on the 17th of November, went in at number 56 by Russ Abbott.
Why do I have a feeling that that's actually just a manifesto? Because he always sang stuff about parties, and he liked a good party, he liked a good atmosphere. He likes all of those things, didn't he? The guy that made more or less his entire career by impersonating other comedians. So there you go.
He did, yeah. So, but I'd say we've had Jimmy Tarbuck and Russ Abbott release songs and albums in the same month.
If it had been me, and if I had control of a TV station and these two guys were still around, I'd make them fight to the death live on TV, because that'd be worth watching.
I bet 20 Quaaludes on Tarbuck.
Tarby's going to win a battle royale between Russ Abbott, no matter, because Russ Abbott was an impressionist, really, at his heart, wasn't he? He did Tommy Cooper in a Superman suit, and he did a James Bond impersonation in a scuba diving suit, and he did Frank Spencer probably in a milkman suit. I think he just did impersonations of people in specialist suits. By the thinking about it, I don't remember him doing a lot of other stuff, and he seemed to do a lot of schwaddy-waddy type things.
He had, was it Cooperman as well instead of Superman?
Yeah, that's what I mean. So he did Tommy Cooper in a Superman suit, hence Cooperman, and he did Basildon Bond instead of James Bond, and he had, and that's all that sort of stuff.
Awfulness. But my money would be on Tarby sort of things. I think Tarby would fight dirty.
Well, he can emit a shrieking whistle through that gap in his teeth so loud that pigeons set on fire. That's his special weapon.
Is that like the Shadmock?
Yeah, exactly. He is a Shadmock. He is a Shadmock. He's the last living Shadmock.
Jimmy Tarbuck.
Now there's a reference.
Jimmy Shadmock.
Jimmy Shadmock Tarbuck, the last living Shadmock. And for those people who are listening to this thinking, what are they talking about, which is everybody right now, you have to go and seek out a film called The Monster Club, look for the monster lineage. I tell you what, I've actually got a poster of that monster lineage. I'll stick it in the website so you can see what we're talking about. See if you think that Jimmy Tarbuck is a Shadmock. And also, by the way, you can have fun with your friends by seeing which kind of monster you look like. Just to make it more fun.
Absolutely. Fun for all the family.
Are you a Shadmock? You probably are.
In these lockdown times, you've got to get your amusement where you can. Which monster are you?
Go and watch The Monster Club. Just to watch that film. Anyway, you should. You should watch that.
A Shadmock or a Hume-Goo?
Hume-Goo or a Werevamp.
A Werevamp.
Yep. Don't get me started on that.
I'm not going to. We'll end there. So music in November 85 was an eclectic set of tracks and weirdness and heavy metal and prog rock and power rock and teen bands, and the smoothness of Sade could not be stopped. And
what a time to be alive.
All kinds of crazy stuff, and you could listen to all those on the Hits album. So there you go, that's your music for 1985. Not much else to say about that, so we'll be back in a moment with the second part of our games for this issue. Welcome back. We've got some more games to look at now, 4 in fact, before we wrap up this part. And the first of those games, another big game, and that, another big games, should we say. This is Winter Games from Epix, another high-scoring one, and probably rightly so. Winter Games is, I don't know, is it the follow-up? I guess you call it the follow-up to Summer Games 2. It is the next indie games series, hot on the heels of Summer Games 2. In fact, really hot on the heels, isn't it? What was only about 2 or 3 months ago, we had Summer Games 2.
Makes you wonder if they've made them all in a big row.
Yeah, craziness sort of thing. So this is Winter Games. So we've moved on from the heady heights of Los Angeles, 1984 sort of thing, to wherever the Winter Games were held. Is it Sarajevo or something? I don't know. I know they've been around somewhere. They were held somewhere. And we are now in this snowy backdrop for a series of events based around cold sports, shall we say.
Winter sports.
Winter sports, yeah. Winter games, you might always say.
Games that you play in winter.
I did another nerdy bit and recorded all my scores for these. So you have, there are only 7. I'm going to start with the downside slightly, I think, of this release sort of thing, because one of the things that did stick out to me sort of thing was this, when you first start this up, apart from it saying Winter Games on the logo and having a slightly different animated man and a slightly different bitmap, this feels very Summer Games 2 and Summer Game. This is clearly in that lineage. It starts off with a guy running on, not quite as well animated guy, I thought, this time. He's quite a bit jerky, spongy. I thought. Yeah, it's a bit weird, any sort of thing. He's in some kind of thermal suit. Maybe that was affecting his animation. Because he bounds on sort of thing and lights the thing, and then doves fly away sort of thing. But do they have doves at the Winter Games? I thought they'll freeze. But anyway, doves fly away. So that's that. It's very, very Summer Games 2. And at this point, you're thinking, okay, maybe it's... And then the menu comes on, and it's exactly the same. Exactly, apart from being able to introduce Summer Games events. The only thing that's missing at the bottom, you can watch the opening ceremony again, but there's no closing ceremony. I thought was weird. You know, you get the nice closing ceremony in Summer Games 2. It's that nice wrap up. There isn't one in this, which is a bit of a letdown.
They're still going.
Still going, and Sade's still singing at them.
Yeah.
So you know, these little touches, and this to me points to a release that may have been slightly a bit rushed. You know, there's some elements slightly missing. There's only 7 events, like there were 8, and let's face it, 2 of them are the same. So, and I'm not knocking the quality here or anything like that sort of thing. What I'm saying is let's get the downsides out of the thing, and there are some down points. To me, this isn't as good as Summer Games 2, but it's still head and shoulders pretty much above everything else apart, you know, that's getting released around this time sort of thing. This is still another great game. We have, like I said, we have 7 events, and they are, again, another eclectic bunch of games, events. We have the hot dog, which is, you know, you go down a small slope and launch yourself off and do some tricks on skis. Stunt skis, yeah. We have the biathlon, which is go across country with a gun and shoot targets across 3 screens. You go uphill, you go downhill, you have to load and reload and shoot targets. That's quite good. Then you have figure skating, which took me going hunting the actual controls for before I could actually do anything with it sort of thing. So figure skating, you have to do 7 maneuvers and you go along, you skate, and you're very, very nicely animated figure skater does her stuff, and you jump around and you do some lutzes and triple axels and spins and all kinds of stuff like that. You then have the ski jump, which is very nice. You go down the ski jump, you fly off the end, and you have to sort of move the joystick in a way to sort of combat the different effects that the wind is having on you as you sail through the air and then land nicely. Speed skating, which is essentially rowing from Summer Games 2. It's just with speed skaters instead. We then have freestyle skating, which is just figure skating, but you can do what you want, and it's a minute longer. And then the last one is bobsled, where you race down a bobsled in a nice sort of small 3D effect and your track sort of thing, and you have to steer into the corners and get down as fast as you can. That's it. That's your Winter Games. All the events, same with Summer Games 2, are fun to play. Probably some more so than others. I always like the ski jump. That's one of my favourites. Speed skating, again, is good fun because it's the same as rowing. The biathlon can take a little bit of time. It's all right. It's a really, really good series of games. You know, let's face it. Graphically, this is again graphically, I'd say this is a bit of maybe a step up especially in its backdrops from Summer Games 2. The backdrops are great sort of thing. They're really, really nice bitmap visuals. Sort of lots of nice snowy mountains and some great animations in places. It just feels to me that they wanted this out for the winter, and I think it just lacks that polish that Summer Games 2 had. Summer Games Games 2 has a sense of fluidity and smoothness and polish, and everything seems spot on. This coming so quickly on the back of it feels like they were up against it to try and get it out. I mean, like I said, you've got two events which are the same. You've got an event less than Summer Games 2. There's no closing ceremonies. The animation in the intro ceremonies is a bit different. It feels that, and I feel like I'm pernickety sort of thing. I'm being a bit down on this, but compared to Summer Games 2, it's not as good. It's still fun. There are still some great events in this, and everything about it is still way above everything else. But in comparison to good as Summer Games 2, it's not. That's my take on it. I enjoyed playing it. Don't get me wrong. I loved playing it. It's a really great game. It shows what the C64 can do again in capable hands. And Epic's at this point, are still on fire. They're making a great series of games. This to me is a dip before we come back. I think the next one is World Games. Which brings the series back up. I think World Games is phenomenal, and hopefully I'll still think that when we come to play it again. But this is a slight bit of dip, and I think it just suffers from maybe feeling a little bit rushed. I don't know. What was your take on it? What did you think?
I've always liked winter games. Is it as good as Summer Games 2, as you say? I don't think it is. Lacks the kind of freshness and brightness of that game. It all feels a bit wintry, I suppose. I like the sports in there. Hot dog is good fun. Biathlon feels a bit like a drag, but it's all right. Figures both the ice skatings are I think they're the worst ones in it. They're both quite dull. The ski jump's fun. The bobsleigh's fun. Speed skating's are kind of meh. It's just not. The events are good. They're just not quite as fun as perhaps they are in Summer Games 2. They do develop this theme in World Games and California Games later, so it gets a lot better after this. I think it's good. It's just not as good as Summer Games 2. So it seems to be, like you say, it seems to be missing a little bit of the magic from that. I don't quite know why. But that said, it's still good. It's still, really playable, and I still had a lot of fun. Certain events, it's weird. When certain events are really good in there. So the ski jump was really great fun to play. And of course, with all of these games, you can just play and practice the individual events. You don't have to go through them all. And you can just, practicing the bobsleigh, practicing the ski jump on the hot dog, they were really great. There was always great fun events in this. They were always good little mini games in their own right. The others I could, give or take. I'm not overly bothered about them. So I spent quite a bit of time on the bobsleigh. I've always found that quite good fun. It was shorter than I remembered, the track on the bobsleigh, which is odd. I thought I was interested in one for ages, but it was a lot shorter than I thought. But still...
Yeah, so it's about 7 turns, isn't it? It's just about 7 or 8 turns.
I just remember it being way longer than thinking, oh, God, it's going to take me hours to go down there. And it's actually not that bad. So, yeah... It's another good Epic sports game. It's just not their best Epic sports game, but for them, even not as good as the others means it's actually really good fun. And it's good value. You're actually getting loads of games for your money here, really. So
yeah, absolutely. You have 8 people playing this, or 4 or 2 or 3 or 4, whatever sort of thing, and you're gonna have a great time with it. There's no two ways around it, because trying to do better on the ski jump, trying to do better on the speed skating, trying to do better on the hot dog. Those, you get 3 attempts at it. There's some excellent stuff here. If you've got 2 people going against each other on the speed skating, that's going to be fun. The bobsled is quick and fast, and trying to shave microseconds off that, it was always an enjoyable challenge sort of thing, of trying to sort of get as fast as you could going down it. But yeah, I'm not knocking, because visually it's great. Sounds are ace. I've always loved the music to the ski jump. That's a great piece of music. Even though it's short, it's just got a great piece of feel to it. There's lots of, and the weird guitar-y type music to the hot dog. That now that sort of odd sort of, there's some great tunes in it, and some even the sort of classical pieces with the skating are nicely done. Everything's polished and nice. It just, whether this is a bit rushed, I don't know, sort of thing. Could it have done with maybe another 2-3 months in the oven? Possibly.
I think if you had Summer Games 2 and you wanted to play a summer and a winter games as a set of games, as a series of playing all through the summer and then play the winter events, you've got loads to go at here, and for the money you've paid, you've got in loads of value. You could just play you could have a day of playing Olympic games with them, couldn't you?
Yeah, absolutely. You could 100% do that. I'm not knocking that. You're comparing this to you're comparing an ace game to an amazing game. I think that's the thing, in it. You're comparing something that is really good to something that is outstanding.
Well, the picked events,
it's the whole. It's their it's their bar that you're comparing them against. I don't think you compare them against like other sports games. It's Epic's bar. Well, they've set it.
It is, but I think also this game lacks a little bit of the celebration that you get in summer games. It lacks the kind of audience in the background cheering you on, because even during some of the events, the bobsleigh doesn't really have much of that. There's little hints of it, but it's not just doesn't feel quite as big and celebratory and as big an event as the summer games does. It just feels like these are a little bit more. I suppose it is kind of a game's offshoot. I don't know, but you're right. Maybe another couple of months might have seen it with a bit more, one more event and a bit more sparkle. Lord knows what that event might have been. Hopefully not curling.
I don't love curling. What else do they do? The winter games. I don't know.
Oh, they do.
I'm surprised there's no skiing.
I have to say, that does seem strangely missing out of this, where you've got two figure skatings and no skiing. I wonder if that's the event that's missing, because there's only 7, isn't there? And it does feel like there's one missing there.
Because if you think skiing would be essentially the kayak, but reversed.
Yeah, you could have done it, yeah.
Because you get the kayak, you're going uphill, you're going up screen, aren't you? It's going round through the hoop, through the gates. But skiing's the same sort of thing, especially, as you're heading downwards, trying to go around the gates.
Well, I could have
seen that.
Horace goes skiing has been made at this point, so if Horace can make that, they can make this. The Epics guys could have made it, right? But I can say, I wonder if it was just an event, in a rush to get this released before the Christmas period and the snowy period as such. I wonder if this was just a bit of and so they. Because it is missing that skiing event, isn't it, really, if you think about it? It's the big thing about Winter Games is the kind of slalom skiing, right? And so, okay, yeah, I think
it's a strange omission. Yeah. And like I said, the two figure skating is just stick an extra minute on it and give you a different tune.
Yeah, I know. That silly, stupid event. I don't like those events. Anyway.
They're not the best. But that's what I mean. It's like you need something with a bit of the rowing. You need the cycling. You're missing the cycling.
Well, you need something more lively after the biathlon, because that's boring. I mean, it's okay, but it is quite dull, because it's just left, right, waggle, waggle, and quick waggle, and then shoot, and then waggle, 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 ski, 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 and it's just it's just not very interesting. So you think after that you need kind of one to pick. So ski jump would have been better after that than figure skating, where it just feels like it's just not very interesting to look at, is it? But there you go.
It feels like a schizophrenic review, this, because we do like it. We do. We're not, and we sat down it, but we're not, because we had loads of fun with it. It's just like I said, I'm comparing it to the 2 meters 50 that they cleared with summer games, and this clears maybe 2 meters 30.
Yeah, it's just not. It's just not as good as the Epic's games of this type that aren't as good as other Epic games of this type are still great. They're just not as good as each other, which is, because you can only really compare this to another Epic's game. Yeah,
and what we had before was better. But anyway, it's still great. If you want some fun in the snow, then Winter Games is a great way to spend a lot of time, because there's some chasing those high scores, chasing those good times and those distances and the ski jump, what have you. Trying to get a perfect 6 in the figure skating, that's gonna tax you.
I got a perfect 1.
Oh dear, I got 2.8. I know, that was great.
You always were a good figure skater.
I was, true, sort of thing. I have the litheness for it.
And you like wearing short skirts on ice.
Yeah, absolutely, sort of thing. It is something I'm not ashamed of. I look great. I shave my legs especially.
Only one of them.
The one I lead with.
My lead leg is nice and smooth.
The one I cut through the air with. Let's move on. Winter Games, fun game, but just not as good as Summer Games 2, but still very, very, very much worth your time.
Yep.
All right. So we're going to now move on to stealth. Graham, tell us about the next Brudderbund game.
So, why do I get these? So,
you got Paradroid. Stop whinging.
True. So, stealth is a shoot. I hesitate to say flying game. It's a ground skimmer game, for want of a better description. So, I'm not sure if you're in an airplane or in what kind of vehicle that is. It's supposed to be an airplane, but it doesn't take off. It just kind of skims the ground. The idea of the game is you're shooting across this. I want to say track, but I'm not sure what you'd call it really. But that same kind of view where you've got a vehicle at the front of the screen, you move left and right, and then it's some kind of scrolling raster effect to simulate sort of zooming towards something. In this instance, you're flying towards towers, where you've got to shoot these towers, and as you get through the levels, each tower becomes more difficult to shoot. You're in the distance, they're in the distance, so you've got to drive, skim your way to the tower. In your way, between you and the tower, various obstacles of different types, which you could go to shoot, and they can get in the way and shoot you and blow you up. You get the idea. So that's the game. You control it by sort of move left and right, and shooting, and avoiding the enemies, shooting the enemies. I found the enemies... The graphics are okay. They're kind of chunky, blocky, but they're okay. They function. The game's fast. It moves at a pace. My only problem was the enemies were quite hard to see, so they kind of flop about and they're quite difficult and where you're driving, skimming is hard to make out. So it's not clear if it's a driving game or a flying game or what on earth it is. So because they're kind of naff graphics and are blocky and a bit ugly, and the towers are off in the distance, as you sort of get towards them, you have to blow them up. And that's kind of all there is to it. So it's kind of it's a bit of a mishmash between a driving game without the track and a flying game without the ability to fly. And somewhere in the middle of all that, you end up with stealth. Now, I'm guessing you're a stealth fighter. However, you're not particularly stealthy in any way because everyone sees you come in and you blow everything up in sight. So I'm not sure what the stealth element is. I didn't get that. But the object of the game is to reach and destroy the dark towers. Once you destroy the tower at level 1, you move to level 2 and you have to shoot the tower twice, and level 3 times, and so on and so on and so on and so on. It's got 5 levels in the game in total, so 5 towers have to die, and then after that you've won and you go back to the start, and that's that game. What did I think of it? I thought it was very average, not much fun, difficult to navigate and play. I felt like I should have been able to take off and couldn't, which annoyed me. But that's my take on it. What about you?
Yeah, I've not got much else to say. So I think a passable 3D Buck Rogers style affair.
Yeah, another Buck Rogers-y one. What?
That and Hunter Patrol. This one. It's TC trying to get to the Dark Tower for some reason. Yeah. There was some preamble about that. I was like, okay. It looks okay. The sprites are quite nice and it's fast. I just played it. I just found it far too hard. There's 2 types of shields things you can go through to top up your shields. One depletes them, one puts them up. It's really hard to actually try and aim at the ones that put them up because everything's... You
accelerate don't you, by pushing forward, and you decelerate by... You've got speed control, for want of a better description.
You have got some speed control, but it's like if you go to slow sort of thing, then everything just shoots you too quickly and the shield is down too fast.
Exactly, yeah.
It's very hard to... It's that sort of a problem again sort of thing with trying to sort of move stuff in... it's trying to get the C64 to move stuff in 3D from side to side and coming towards you sort of thing, and it just ends up with things juddering around a bit and not being able to be sort of solid and real because it's just sprite scaling stuff and not quite working. The best thing I could say about this was it had a nice font.
It did have a nice font, actually. Yes, typefaces go. Yeah,
I like the font that it had, sort of thing. Yeah. But as a game, I played it for a bit. I tried a few times. I died quickly. Then I realised, obviously, I had a relook at the title screen. And I said, "Oh right, those are positive energy things." Okay, so I tried to go through them. Got a bit further, but didn't get anywhere near any towers or anything. I didn't shoot any towers. I just got killed every time. I couldn't get anywhere near them. It was just Buck Rogers-y style shooter that if you like these, you're probably going to like it again. But is it better than Hunter Patrol? Probably.
I think it's better than Hunter Patrol. I think Hunter Patrol was awful. This was it's the same kind of deal really, but at least the sprites are bigger and you could see them easier. At least some of them.
Yeah. I give that probably being a bit harsh. It is better than Hunter Patrol, and it's not that I didn't enjoy my time with this. It just was. I don't know. I just found it a bit frustrating.
Yeah, a bit nothingy,
and a bit trying to do something that just wasn't quite there, sort of thing. It's that flickery unpredictableness of enemies in 3D.
Yep.
That they've not quite nailed yet. I don't know if other games might get it in time, sort of thing. But this was just trying to move too much around and was failing that. But yeah. Nice font.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, the only good thing you can say about a game is it's got a nice typeface, really. But yeah, I agree.
You look for the positives where you can find them.
Yeah, true.
And I didn't understand why it was called stealth. You were in a stealth fighter, but you just shot everything and everything could see it immediately.
Why wouldn't you just call it the Dark Tower? Since the aim of the game is to blow up the Dark Tower.
Well, we had the Dark Tower in one of our earlier right at the start.
Maybe that's why they couldn't call it that. Yeah.
And that was about an egg. So you weren't controlling an egg trying to get to a tower.
Yeah, maybe that's why they didn't want to get mixed up with that monstrosity, so this monstrosity had its own name.
Yeah,
that's
stealth.
Fair. That's fair.
Yeah. Anyway, so stealth, not so stealthy. But if you're a fan of your C64 typefaces, it's worth a look.
Yeah, it's worth. And also, if you do like your zooming games where you zoom into the screen, just wait. Just hold off and wait, because there are good ones that come. They're just not right now. So
That's
just wait.
true.
Just wait.
Okay, up next. Well, this is unusual, this game, and I'm not quite sure how much I'm going to have to say about this, but it is a C64 version of James Herbert's The Rats. So, for those who don't know, the 80s were replete with authors writing horror novels based around animals. And the most popular ones being James Herbert's The Rats. There was things like Cujo, I mean, I suppose that was the 70s from Stephen King, but also Sean Hudson's Slugs and Breeding Grounds. And there was a series of them, so was The Rats from James Herbert. And the 80s had loads and loads and loads of these kind of novels, these horror novels about people getting killed in really, really horrible ways. And I mean really horrible sort of thing. So The Rats was basically about these giant rats that ate people in London, and this is a version of that for some reason. I was completely unaware that this game even existed. I'd never heard of it. I had no idea that there was a version of this. Bypassed me at the time, sort of thing. I didn't read The Rats until a few years later, mid to late 80s. So I came to it a bit later, sort of thing. So this game was probably gone and forgotten about by then. So this has elements. I don't know. There's no preamble. The game, the version I was playing just started, and there was some kind of map of London, a really, really sort of basic map of London in the middle of the screen, and you had some options that you could reinforce stuff or report on stuff or go and investigate things. And then before I could do anything sort of thing, I was launched into like these sort of mini skits where people were menaced by rats, and you had it all became like a text-based adventure where you could choose to stop and look and move places by joystick. You didn't type anything, and the choices you made would either get you away or lead you to horrible deaths at by the rats who were starting to kill people around London. And then you would, once these skits had played out, you'd go back to this map screen, and you had to try and figure out what was going on and send people in to report and investigate. And you'd get bits of London were being overrun by the rats, and you carry on. And I found it very, very impenetrable. This wasn't in any way particularly user friendly. It was I think maybe this was trying to riff on the Fourth Protocol, which we looked at a few episodes back, but much worse. And there's an interesting premise here, sort of thing. The whole trying to control the military as London is overrun by sort of killer rats. But I just couldn't make head and tail of it, and I couldn't find my way through it to really get on with it. And so it just left me nonplussed, is the best I can say about it. I don't know, did you get very far into it?
I'm afraid I didn't. I was never a fan of the Herbert novels anyway. But I thought I tried going into this with a bit of an open mind. It's not something that had ever come across my radar before. So I went into it, and it felt to me like a choose your own adventure book that had been converted into a sort of joystick controlled choose your own adventure thing. You had that little map screen, didn't you? And you could sort of go in and choose things. And each time I did anything like that, it went sort of from me clicking things to then looks like a screen being eaten to then me being described an inexplicably horrible death in some way. And that seemed to do that a lot. So I thought, had I had more time and inclination to probably actually sit down and go, right, I'm going to play this for a longer period. I'm going to need to give this a bit longer. There might have been something in it. I don't generally do these adventure games anyway. Even if it's a type in or whether it's a joystick select or whatever, I'm not a big fan of them, generally speaking. For me, they feel slow and dull. But I imagine if you're into the rats and you're into that kind of whole world and you're into this is probably a good extension to the book. So you'd have read the book, and there might be real key scenes in the book that this plays out that I'm completely unaware of. It's not a book I've ever read either. So if you're into the rats and you're into the Herbert novels and you're into that kind of super violent, gory, descriptive prose, I imagine this is right up your street. But for me, it was a complete off the radar, not a misfire. I imagine if you like it, you like it. But for me, I didn't get anything from it. I think out of genuine curiosity, it's something that people should load up and have a look at, just because there are some really unusual controls in there, and it has got a really weird presentation style, which you don't see a lot of. So if you're curious about that, you could go in and have a look at that and see how far you could get. But other than that, it certainly wasn't for me at all.
Yeah, I mean, my closing note on this is an intriguing but confusing take on the book that could certainly draw you in if you fancy a step away from arcade adventures and sports games.
Yeah, exactly.
I think there's something here, and if you if you want to sort of dig into it, and you could probably get something from this. It's similar in tone, not in tone sort of thing, but similar in style to something like Shadowfire. It's something different. It's doing something different with a joystick and an interface that's not your typical arcadey stuff that's around at this point in time, and you might get something from it. I mean, it's been 30 odd years since I've read The Rat, so I don't know if the skits were scenes from the book. I couldn't tell you. I can't remember. But yeah, it was, one point I think the second skit was some guy in a shop, and I ended up gassing myself and dying that way.
The one I ended up with, the woman got her face eaten off.
Was that the little girl? Did you have the little girl with the paper round going through the building site?
Yeah,
I got eaten there. I did it again sort of thing, and then didn't go in the building site, and then she just legged it. But there's another one with the second one. You're the guy at the shopkeep. You can. The rats all coming up and eat you, or I ended up gassing myself down in the cellar when I mixed the two liquids that I'd found.
That'll do it.
I was like, that's the wrong thing. That's the kind of thing this game does. It's just, but I couldn't. I think my problem was sort of thing is I couldn't quite meld the skits with the sort of grand, the overarching view of that you had. They didn't seem to. I couldn't see how one was feeding into the other, and in any way. And that may have been just me, but that's what I like.
I agree.
There we go. The Rats. Interesting take, and you might get something from it, but you might not. I don't know. I can't tell you.
You will. I guarantee what you will get, and that's eaten by rats at some point in that game.
Yeah, everybody gets eaten by rats.
Yeah,
that's the whole point of the books. Right, let's move on to our last game for this episode, this part, sorry. And our last game to look at is Axis Assassin, which sounds better than it is, I think. Go on.
It is, yeah. So this is from the guys that made Mule, one of our previous games that we didn't like. John Field is the guy that made Mule, and this is from the Mr. Mule, and it's essentially it's a take on, or a version of, depends how you look at it. It's kind of a glass half full, half empty conversation on Atari's arcade Tempest. So this is a variant of Tempest. Same kind of idea, and Tempest is a kind of a shooter. It's a clever shooter. It's a vector-based shooter originally in Tempest, but the idea is you're on kind of space tracks, for want of a better description, and you are a sort of a spaceship on these tracks. You can shoot along the tracks, and there's enemies coming towards you. You can shoot those and clear pathways of them, and you can sort of travel left and right and go sort of and follow the pathways of these tracks up and to the sides and round, and then along as well. It is quite hard to describe the vectory nature of it, but just imagine that you're shooting from the front of the screen where you're positioned, shooting towards the back at a target in the distance, and you could sort of navigate these kind of vector track lines, wires, and then at a certain point when you clear enough path, a giant spider appears, you can shoot that, and then you can travel along the pathway to the next level. The next level is then made of various different kinds of vector track lines in different kind of angles. Again, you can sort of skit around the angles. It's quite frantic, shooty pace. It's quite nicely done. Some of it feels a little bit laboured when it draws kind of it reminded me of that horrific owl versus spider game that we played where it
Dickie's Diamonds.
Where it redrew the kind of level at the beginning, so you get this kind of, but it actually positions these things that you need to shoot and collect in a certain sequence. So there is sort of a method to it. Nice pace, the controls are responsive. The whole thing just felt a little bit underpublished and underpolished. So it just felt like it just needed some finishing touches on it to make it really good. Because the graphics in of themselves aren't bad. It's kind of medium res, but you kind of get away with it. So it's got a pace and a sort of the colours are quite nice. It's kind of a sheeny, kind of sparkly kind of effect, and it's quite nice. It's a version of Tempest that lacks, I think, the va-va-voom of Tempest, because Tempest is actually quite an addictive arcade game. So because it lacks that sort of punch and power, it's kind of a Tempest light. It's not quite ready. It's not quite there. Enjoyable for a while, but I'm not going to be playing this for a long time to come. So that was my take on it.
I think you liked it more than I did. I really didn't get on with this. I tried to dig into it sort of thing because I was like, when was it released? And I could only find reference to it being made in 1983.
Yeah, it felt like either an older game or an unpolished. It just felt like those early games didn't have a lot of polish about them.
Yeah, but it's like, why is this being released now?
Well, we know why.
We know why, yeah. Sort of thing. But it's 9.95 as well. Like, for God's sake. So I played it sort of thing, and I felt, yeah, like you said, it's Tempest to a degree. I mean, there's some extra bits in it. You can move up and down, the webs and what have you and stuff like that, and you can fire forwards and backwards. And yeah, it's all right in that respect. But I had a look at other versions of it, sort of thing, and this just felt like It just felt like a knockoff version from like the Atari or whatever sort of thing, which seemed much faster versions of this because I think they could just do it better. And this it felt slow and a bit clunky, and I like Tempest. And I've liked various versions of Tempest through the years, sort of thing. I think I do remember playing this, briefly back in the day, but back in the 80s. But even then, I don't remember any kind of like affinity for it even at the time. Whereas I'd played Tempest in arcades and liked that. If I think it was arcade games, but this just left me cold. There's some nice elements to it, but I couldn't get on with it really, and I thought it was just a bit dull. It just that was my take on this. It was I stop saying it felt like a game again out of time.
Yeah, and I wondered if Tempest was done better by anyone else. Anyway, this is there actually a C64 version of Tempest that is better than this? There probably is. I don't know, and maybe
probably. I'm sure Minter did one, didn't he?
Jeff Minter did it. Yeah, he did do a really great version. Actually, it's really good. So, but I'm not sure if it's on the C64.
No, I know he's done loads of versions of Tempest over the years, but I don't know. I don't know if it's a version of Tempest on C64. It just feels like it's an old arcade game, isn't it? It's just an old arcade game.
Yeah.
Someone's done a version of it in 1983, and they've released it 2 years later, and it's like, there you go. There's a penchant for liking it because obviously I think in the review they say that it's a decent Tempest game finally on the C64. But it's like, yeah, but I'd rather go play Winter Games or Paradroid for Christ's sake at this point.
Absolutely.
But for me, Axis Assassin, I really like the name. There's a real coolness to the name. I'm not quite sure what the name has to do with the game.
Again, I'm not sure that has anything to do with it. Why? But they probably couldn't get the license, so they couldn't call it Tempest.
Yeah, so Axis Assassin is a cool title, but it's unfortunately attached to a rather unappealing, unenjoyable game that is probably better. This is one of the things, sort of thing, where you say this is better on other machines. I went and sort of had a look at other versions on YouTube, sort of thing, and they seem much faster and much more responsive. A game like this needs to feel fast. You need to be zipping about and doing about, and I felt at times this sort of thing. Vector graphics in the C64.
Well, they're not vector graphics on that. They're
whatever they are, they look like vector graphics.
Yeah, they're sprite scaled. They're not, because it'd never run that quickly on a C64 with vector graphics ever. It's not compatible.
Whatever they were, they don't look great.
Okay, it's medium res. You can tell by the sort of the way that the lines are got that horrible medium resi angles to them. Anyway, it is what it is. It's Tempest, but not as we know it.
Jim.
Not as we know it, Jim.
No, it's not. Certainly not. Okay, so there you go. Wish it ended better, but it didn't. Axis Assassin, great name, not great game. Right, so that's our games for this episode. So we've looked at music. What games have we looked at? We have looked at the Activision Little Computer People Discovery Kit, Paradroid, Wizardry, Sorcerer Attack, Hunter Patrol. We've looked at music, obviously. We've then gone on to look at Winter Games, Stealth, The Rats, and finally Axis Assassin. There's your games for this session. We're going to look at more games next week. And we'll come to those in a moment. But first of all, let's do some Crapverts. So we've got some Crapverts to look at, maybe 2 or 3. Our first one, not particularly a Crapvert, but just I was a bit bemused by this. This is an Electric Dreams advert. I didn't know what I was really looking at on this because the game, it's just a load of triangles.
It's a bit weird, isn't it? Because Electric Dreams is the company that makes the games, and that actually features more prominently than the actual games they've made. And
the text is so small, but it says, so just to sort of say what you've got this, there's a background, there's a repeated background of a yellow and white triangle, like puzzle pieces, all the way across this entire advert, from top to bottom, in kind of slightly opaque, slightly transparent, text. You've got Beyond Your Wildest Dreams in like a soft, script style font across the top. Then you've got the Electric Dreams logo, which is a triangle. So this gets the logo, obviously all those triangle bits. It's quite a nice logo. It's not terrible. I've seen a lot worse. There's some text there, which is quite hard to read. And then at the bottom, there's some games.
Well, they're 2 parts of the same game by the sound of it.
Spy's Demise and Spy Strikes Back.
They're again, 2 episodes.
2 episodes. Digital dexterity and devious deduction are only 2 of the skills you'll require when you take on the nasty bad men in these 2 episodes from the world's most intriguing espionage story. Now, we've just reviewed Fourth Protocol. I reckon that's a more intriguing espionage story, you know?
I suspect it is.
I reckon John le Carre might have a few words about this.
What's curious here also is in that centre section it says in really tiny writing, some of the world's most ingenious minds will be recruited to bring you entertainment and excitement beyond your wildest dreams. So they don't even hired anyone to make these things yet. This is a proper sales pitch of the company more than the games. And I think this shouts of, we've got big ideas. Let's take out a full page ad in a magazine and see if anyone bites.
Yeah, because it says, buy this title as the first of many to complete your range of electric dream. What does that even mean?
What are they advertising? Be clear about it. Stop putting things in triangles, for goodness sake. Why?
Everything's a triangle. It's such a strange advert, and that's why I included it, because that Beyond Your Wildest Dreams has got a drop shadow as well, hasn't it?
Oh, don't even get me started on that.
Which is all over the place.
Well, just don't make the background more opaque or make the front less opaque. Either way, don't double opaque and then put a drop shadow on it, because it blends into some opacity madness and yellow and light grey. Come on, what are we doing here? It looks like cheese in the background with a little chunk missing.
Yeah, it does actually. Oh.
So the company made the cheese.
It's a strange pitch of an advert that doesn't really know what it's about. I don't know. There's an amazing new concept in software presentation. Electric Dreams will bring you 2 exciting games in one double-sized cassette package at superb
Why
value.
do I have a feeling that the game was presented in a triangle-shaped box or something really naff?
I don't know. No. But the thing is, the things at the bottom, there's no visuals. There's no graphics on the game. It's just 2 images that are pretty naff.
Yeah,
not great.
And it's one of those classic 80s logos as well, where you've got a preponderance of triangles and geometry for no reason. The word electric in there, and it actually, if you took away everything else, it's got a kind of a Gary Newman album vibe about the look of that as well.
Yeah.
So it's got kind of the word electric is in some kind of sort of serif-based Times Roman kind of style. Then you've got this peculiar cheese triangle thing with a chunk missing. Then Dreams is written in sort of toothpaste. It just shouts kind of
electric creams.
It is electric creams, isn't it? It just shouts that kind of, it's a band from the 80s album, isn't it? It's a new romantic album that never was.
Yes.
And I suspect those games, because that character on that one in the triangle to the bottom right looks a bit like a fat Inspector Gadget.
Yeah, he does, yeah.
Maybe that's what it's all about.
It's not a terrible advert. It's just a bemusing advert. It's just like,
I'm not sure what they're advertising.
No.
Just be clear what you're selling. You're either selling games or you're selling your company, but what you aren't doing is selling it's like if that's a job advert, I ain't applying.
Let's move on to our next one. And this starts our run of boxing games with questionable representation on them.
Oh, what is it with boxing games and questionable representation?
So this is Fight Night, which was from years ago. It's we haven't looked at it yet, actually. I think it's coming. There is some sort of screenshots of it, I think, in this month. And it's a very graphically very impressive boxing game, side-on boxing game, similar in view to Exploding Fist, Baron Mugen, profile style. So profile style graphics with very cartoony they were. But the advert, do you want to take the advert and?
Well, so this is Bob Wakelin, right?
It is Bob Wakelin, yeah.
So this is a Bob Wakelin drawing. So firstly, at least the representations of the characters are well drawn.
Oh yeah, it's really well drawn.
And
yeah.
I like the fact that it looks like the corners of the boxing ring are actually hot dogs. Never mind that. So you've got boxer to the left in his green shorts, Rocky style kind of boxer, and then we run into issues, don't we, with our Fu Manchu boxing Chinese kung fu person in his kung fu slippers, kung fu pants, and the kind of obligatory long handlebar 70s Chinese gangster style, just
Orientalism writ large.
Oriental stereotyping of the kind that they did in the 80s that thank God they don't do anymore. And I suspect that I haven't played it. I suspect that game is full of them, because these boxing games are always full of them. So he's probably going to be called something awful like Fu Manchu, or I'm not even going to go into the list of potential stereotypical Chinese boxing person names probably in that game, along with all the other horrific things. As a piece of artwork for a game, at least it's got energy, and it is blatantly someone being punched right in the nutsack, which is
it is.
At the very least, it's that. So it is what it is. What's curious is why the Fight Night writing at the top, which is where the sort of is clearly, I think they're meant to be sponges, like, because there's kind of water sort of squeegeeing out of them. I don't quite know where this what the direction of this is, but it's an odd old thing. But at least it features some screen grabs of the game in there. Thankfully, they're tiny, because looking at those, I have a feeling that them characters are dodgy at best.
Yeah, I seem to remember it. I seem to remember it not being quite as bad as the other boxing game that we haven't mentioned yet.
Well, mysteriously, they've got a quote from Zapped on this advert from the November issue.
I was going to come to that. It's like watching and playing a cartoon computer version. There is a preview of it in this issue. Might Night has pushed the graphical capabilities of C64 to its utmost limits, but there's no review. And also, as well, I've just looked at the titles reviewed in the next issue, and it ain't there either.
Sensing a little bit of tomfoolery around there. And Tony, what does Tony Takushi from Computing Video Games say? It has class, it has style, forget the rest, Fight Night is quite simply the absolute best. I don't believe he said those words. I think they made that, or I think they're just taking out the game he actually spoke about and put the word Fight Night in.
He probably did. It's probably another preview. I don't know, because I don't think this is out. This is out over yet. So they're advertising this on the back of previews, which is ropey at best, sort of thing. But the reason I wanted to include this to look at, sort of thing, is again just that representationalism, sort of thing, of the othering and and just blatant Orientalism of like
what are they doing?
If they're Chinese or they're Japanese or whatever sort of thing, they've got to have this Fu Manchu-esque appearance, which is oh dear.
Yeah, he's got to be in his sort of baggy kung fu pants. He's got to be wearing kung fu slippers. He's not allowed to be wearing the same boxing attire that regulations specify you must wear in a boxing ring. Of course, this one is held together by string and hot dogs, so all bets are off really with that. And the crowd in the background look like they're kind of intermediately concerned. There is a guy looking bemused right between the Chinese fighter's legs, just between his knees.
I noticed that.
Yeah, which I imagine he's probably very impressed with the power of that crotch punch, which has just been... Because it's meant to be a stomach punch, but we know that isn't.
There's a guy on the left as well, sort of thing, just to the left of the hot dog in the background, sort of thing. He's just carefully stroking his chin.
Yeah, he is. Yeah. Next to the guy that looks like Leonard Nimoy or Spock from Star Trek, shouting at somebody. So just there's a lot to look at in that. But you know what? There's a nice style to it. Don't get me wrong. I don't agree with it, but it's a Wakeling piece, so it's good. It's just I think even he would.
Good. It's just I just wanted to pull it out, sort of thing, because of your representation, which you just would not get away with these days.
The strange thing is, Barry McGuigan's boxing doesn't do that, does it?
No, it says a picture of Barry McGuigan.
Yeah, but even the game doesn't feature horrific stereotypes from all around the world. I mean, by a country mile, this is nowhere in the same league as Super Punch-Out or Frank Bruno's boxing, as it was known. It's not even the same league as the titling of the naming of the characters in that, for goodness sake. What was he called in that? Fling Long Chop or something awful. So
yeah.
So, but this game is heading down that territory. Why? I think they're picking this up from the arcade heritage, aren't they? The arcade boxing games all had characters and stereotypical characters and names like that. They're getting it from that. But they could be bigger. They could back then. Maybe they didn't know any different. But nowadays,
mid 1980s and the view of the other, isn't it? It's just what it is. Just what it is.
Just imagine if you released these games now. No. The uproar there would be if you had that advert.
Yeah, no.
It'd just be like, no, you'd have the advertising standards on your back quicker than you could say stereotype. So, no.
And our last one. Live out your dreams on the Southern Belle.
God's sakes.
So train simulator. I don't know. It's a train. It's a picture of a train. My dreams are not on the Southern Belle. No. There's bits of it I like. I like there's some nice theme. I like the Southern Belle, which looks like the sign that you see on the side of the. Basically, this is like a 3/4 perspective view of a train coming out. A steam engine, and this is a steam engine simulator. This game.
Yeah.
So fair enough. It's all thematically quite consistent. That looks like the sort of signage that you would see on the side of a steam engine. The Southern Belle logo, quite nice. The ticket is quite nice, but it's just, God's sake, people. This is glider pilot and kayak.
Yeah, and how many train type puns can you fit into one passage on an advert here? Now we have just the ticket. Hop aboard the footplate. Wipe the soot from your eyes. It's just oh, for goodness sake, I get it. It's about trains, all right, and you're not going to get me giddy about trains in any capacity. But if somebody really wants to pull the Pullman carriages from Victoria to Brighton and make sure they do it in a time limit. This is the simulation for you. I don't imagine it's as exciting as being on a train. So, but you know what? Maybe I'm not into these simulators at all. I feel bad sometimes, thinking maybe I should be more into them.
No, you shouldn't. No, don't feel bad. What are you doing,
look at them.
You're getting sucked into the dream.
No. I would never knowingly load up a train simulator. Because if it was actually a real train simulator, let me tell you, you're going to get stuck between Doncaster and just outside of Doncaster for about 2 hours. You're going to run out of... No, the toilets aren't going to work on any of the trains in any capacity. You're always going to be an hour late no matter where you're going. And they pipe the water for the coffees that you buy from hell itself because it's that hot.
So would the tagline for that more likely be live out your nightmares on the 9:45 to Doncaster?
Yeah, that would actually be more accurate. Yeah, it would be live out your nightmares. Yeah, and the challenge of the game is to get to Doncaster because it's not unlikely to happen.
Avoid leaves on the track.
Yeah, and then it would just be it would actually just be train cancellation simulator. So it just brings up a board and it's just cancelled. You can't play the game today. Sorry, everything's cancelled. It's a very real simulation.
Oh yeah, you were going to drive this from here to here sort of thing. Unfortunately, you're cancelled. So the game just turns off and deletes itself and wipes the tape.
You can never turn your computer off. It just welds itself on. So it's like, right, that's it. The track is broken. It's going to take 6 months to repair for real. So your computer's going to be broken for 6 months. Enjoy. Yeah. Oh, thanks for that. Crap.
Yeah, absolutely. So there you go. There's that.
People dig it though. I mean, I had one of my relatives was well into those model trains, and he had spent hundreds and hundreds of pounds on the model railway. So that, you know what, if you like that kind of thing, I'm sure it's right up your street. Not for me though.
To be fair, my one of my best friends right around this time actually, sort of thing, about 82, sort of 83, 84, 85, sort of late middle school. Would have been middle school sort of thing, was into train spotting, and he dragged me along on several occasions to go train spotting, and tried to get me into it. And he had his book full of numbers and stuff like that. And he was my best mate, so I cut him some slack. But God's sake, it was boring.
Well, I don't get it, but you know what? But then again, it's like any the people have their little quirks and their little nuances. Don't they? I can imagine back in the days when there were steam trains, seeing them coming along the track of the different colours and types and all. I imagine that is. I mean, even now, if you see a steam train, it does capture your. It's different to seeing just a diesel that looks like every other diesel train or electric train just trundle in and out of the platform. I don't get that, but I'm not a fan of these things. Do you know what? Just as a completely separate aside, I lived with a train spotter when I was at university, not on purpose, but we just shared a house. And I once got detoured on a train journey, got on the way home from Derby to where I lived at the time, and it took us down all these weird tracks. I remember saying to this chap, Brian, his name was, saying, "God, yeah, we ended up going on this really strange route." And he's like, "Oh my God, you've been on the Tinsley Curve. People pay good money for that." To this day, I don't know what he was talking about. No, I'm sure that's an amazing thing. So if you are a train spotter and you know what the Tinsley Curve is, feel free to tweet or contact us, because I'm still to this day, I'm not sure what I'd been on and why. But if you do know, I'd like to know what the Tinsley Curve is. So.
Well, to be fair, of course you pay good money to pay on that, because you buy a ticket.
Yeah, absolutely.
You don't just jump on a train and say, "Take me around the Tinsley Curve." You go, "No,
well, no.
You buy a ticket."
Believe it or not, for the train spotters out there, they run train track tours where you can go on bits of track that you don't normally get to go on.
You do know, sort of thing, that this conversation has cost us about 40 downloads, don't you? People are not going to be downloading the next episode.
I'll trim this right down to the bare minimum, so it'll just say train track, good, no. That'll be it.
Keep it nice and simple. No, Tinsley Curve.
Yeah, Tinsley Curve. That's all it'll be. So.
Right, there we go. There's our Crapverts. They'll be on the website as per normal. Go have a look at them. Wonder what the hell you're supposed to be playing in that Electric Dreams one. Grimace at the Orientalism and the horrible representation stuff in Fight Night. And wonder if you can really live out your dreams on the Southern Belle. That's it for this part. We'll be back next week when we will be covering more games from November 1985. Some of those games will be Hacker. We'll be looking at Cops and Robbers. We'll also be looking at Steve Davis's Snooker. We'll be looking at Wizard's Lair and Karateka and a few others as well, along with movies that came out and anything that was going on in TV. So there you go. Please join us next week for those delight. I've been Adrian Mills.
I have been Graham. I don't like trains, but I do like people that do sometimes.
We've been zapped to the past in a version of the Matrix that you just don't want. Not like that. Not like that.
Reset the Matrix immediately.
All right. Good night. Goodbye. We'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening to the Zapped to the Past podcast. We hope you enjoyed our deep dive into the world of Commodore 64 games, as well as the music, sights, sounds and news from around the 1980s, driven, of course, by the issue of Zapped 64 magazine published at the time. We will be back next week with another podcast, so do please join us. Until then, please head over to zappedtothepast.com to sign up to our email list, as well as check out all the links and resources in the show notes. You will also find us on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram under Zapped to the Past. The Zapped to the Past podcast is written and produced by Adrian Mills and Graham Raddings and recorded at Flaky Bits 2.0 Studio. All opinions expressed are those of the writers, and while we indeed love Zapped 64 magazine, the Zapped to the Past podcast is not affiliated with it in any way. Stay safe and see you next time.